Oh, why hello there. Wire Guitars back here again. And I'd like to go through all of the Minion skill gems that are confirmed and posted on PoE2db.tw.com. This is sort of the official or kind of the de facto PoE2 database that we have going on right here. I guess full disclosure, I'm not partnered with them. I don't edit this page, but I do check it frequently in the wake of PoE2 for the purposes of getting hyped. So they have now updated with all of the recent information that we have from the lifted embargoes on several content creators and spilled information. 290 skill gems that we have information on has been updated and compiled for our viewing pleasure on the website that you just saw me go to. But for the purposes of keeping this video and all subsequent videos I'm going to be doing about the game targeted, I want to go over all the Minion skill gems in the game. And as you can see here by my tabs, I've actually organized them into several different categories. First of all, if a gem has the tag Minion, we're going over it. Basically, every Minion skill gem is going to be looked over, and a tag of Minion is enough to qualify you in this video. But I also included some skill gems, and you'll see them, that don't have the tag Minion, but have a spirit cost, reservation cost, or have some theme centered around minions that I felt made them warranted to include them. You'll see that especially in the other buffs section of a few skill gems that don't have the Minion tag, but are still nevertheless pretty Minion-oriented skill gems that I felt needed to be included. I have also included some skill gems which buff minions. They likely have a Minion tag as well, such as like Bone Offering and all the offering spells. But just know that not every skill gem in here has exactly the tag of Minion. They probably just interact with minions in some way, or reserve your spirit and summon something, or buff minions directly. If it's Minion themed, it's in this video. So without further ado, let's get into the first category that I deemed necessary to categorize in this video, which is the skeletal Minion tag. You'll see as we go through these these 8 skill gems that we have, that they all they're themed around skeletal minions, and I felt like they'll probably add to the skeletal tag, so I wanted to make it its own category and then go over them accordingly. These are kind of all minions that are themed around like the horde playstyle or the create a bunch of dudes playstyles. All of these are categorized alphabetically, by the way, within their own tiers. Tier 3 spell, which I believe requires level 5 to be utilized. That's what I see this as. This is tier 3. If you don't know anything about the skill gem system in PoE2, they're doing a like uncut gems drop, and they drop from different tiers of skills. You have like skill tier 1 would be like very basic skills. Skill tier 2 would be like level, a step above that. And then I think it goes all the way up to tier 5. Could be incorrect about that, but these skill gems are going to drop as item rewards from monsters that you slay throughout the axe. You're going to pick them up and you're going to cut them or chisel them into a specific skill that you want. So if you drop any skill, uncut skill tier 3 gem, you'll be able to chisel it into a skeletal arsonist Minion skill gem and then start leveling it as early as level 5, I believe. No, the skill gem, maybe it starts at level 5 and it requires level 14 and 34 intelligence to use. But that's how I'm reading this. It reserves 37 spirit. I assume this is per arsonist, so one arsonist will cost you 37 spirit reservation. If you don't know about how the spirit reservation or the general summoning systems work in this game, I am actually going to link a full video below. I believe it's about 9 minutes of the more recent PoE2 official gameplay reveal for the Witch, which goes over all of the summoning mechanics. Like I said, it's about 9 minutes long. Thank you to GGG for letting me use your guys' direct footage. Yeah, I'm going to link that video, which explains the summoning mechanics. But if you want a brief overview or recap of that video, I'm going to give it now. In PoE2, summoning works differently. Very rarely do you directly cast a summoning spell. What happens more often is you have, with all of the skills that are associated, or with most of, I should say, I'll clarify, most of the skills that have some kind of summoning mechanic oriented to them, they will have a reservation cost of a certain amount of spirit associated with them. Spirit, I believe, is what's used to reserve either, it's like replacing the old mana reservation system. You can either reserve a set amount of spirit for auras, I think, or for minions. As I understand, they kind of occupy the same thing, and you will not use mana to directly summon minions anymore. That being said, when minions die and revive, because they auto revive in this game, I don't believe they cost mana to revive. And it says here there's a cast time. I believe this cast time is for the bomb throwing ability. The actual summoning of the minions also happens automatically. So if I'm understanding those mechanics correctly, that you don't ever spend mana to summon the things that you're summoning, that they reserve a set amount of spirit and auto resummon when they die after a set period of time, that you can also modify. As I understand, there are skills and items in this game that actually say faster minion respawn timer. Those two mechanics alone make summoning minions very powerful in PoE 2. In PoE 1, just automating your summoning process is something that if you could do for a build would be insane. Some auto-belmers did do this in PoE 1 as a part of, like there's some auto-summoning builds in PoE 1 that summon a minion and maybe the minion pops or it does a set amount of damage and that's how they clear. And those builds are feels good to play because you're just running through the maps. You never have to click an offensive button. You can focus exclusively on defense, just dodging around, shield charging around defensively, and your minions will kill things and auto summon themselves. And it just feels super good to play. It seems to be the case that in PoE 2, that is how minions work as well. And that means I'm very interested in playing minions. They're going to have basically an entirely automated play style. And it also, if I understand those mechanics to work as they do, as I've just explained them, as they're explained in the video that I'll be linking, it calls into question some of other minions and minion supports, namely minions like this, that have some sort of support or heal oriented to them. But we'll get to the cleric when we get to it. Let's go over the actual skeletal arsonist finally, now that we've gotten those disclaimers out of the way and explained the basic summoning mechanics in PoE 2. So the skeletal arsonist, like I said, skill gem tier 3, you're going to be getting this pretty early on in the axe or having access to it if you have a an uncut skill gem drop and you make your decision to unlock these bad boys. They have a special ability which allows them to throw bombs and actually detonate your other minions for a set amount of damage. That has a cooldown associated with it. I believe in the gameplay trailers that we've seen, it actually seems more active.
But they also have a command skill that can detonate your own minions that are low on life. When you see the red indicator, use the skill and the minion will go boom. It's particularly nice on these bone constructs because they expire quickly anyway.
It seems like they will target your minions and your minions will like turn red, and then you will have the option of whether or not to detonate them. So it seems like this will be something that won't be as automated, but looks like it has the potential to do a crap ton of damage. As you see here, detonates an ally's minion whose current life is below a threshold, dealing heavy damage. Okay, so actually, based off that wording, and I'm just going to go based off the wording over gameplay footage that we've seen, because wording seems to make so much more sense to me. If the wording is to be trusted, it looks like actually this process will be automated and based on the condition that you have other minions that are really low HP near it. So pretty easy to set up with Summon Raging Spirits if Raging Spirits works similarly to how it does in PoE 1. And I'm pretty sure it doesn't, spoiler alert. But any kind of minion that drains its life naturally will be useful, it seems like, as a sort of a combo minion for Skeletal Arsonist, especially if that minion can be tanky and hopefully like a kind of a brute or like a melee style minion, because these minions seem like they're backline oriented, like they throw... I've seen gameplay footage of them. They seem like they are the range type minion. And I'm not trying to say that's going to mean that they're squishy, because as it turns out in PoE 2, or sorry, as it turns out in PoE 1, I would not be surprised if it's the same way in PoE 2. Your minions are often way tankier than your player character is. The only downside is they are very stupid and often just stand or face tank mechanics. But it's not uncommon for your minions in PoE 1 with just moderate investment to have like 4 or 5 times your health at any given moment in time and like 20 times your effective HP, with how easy it is to stack things like max res on minions. There's like a mastery that gives them 8% max res just for free. So, well, not for free, but for mastery. But so yeah, these minions seem squishy. They seem like they're just based off the gameplay that I've seen from them. But they do seem like they do a good chunk of damage and have the ability to do a crap ton of damage if you want to play a combo-oriented army, which seems like it will be sort of the meta, at least for the beginning of PoE 2's lifespan. I see a lot of players orienting themselves towards playing minions, kind of like a mini RTS, where army composition is going to be key. And I only say that because comboing your minions with other minions seems like it's integral to making the most out of the archetype. We're going to see that the more we get into it. By the way, I'm going to try to keep my opinions to somewhat of a minimum moving forward. We've got Skeletal Brute as the next minion type that is available in the pool. This one has a much heftier spirit cost reservation. As you can see, about 9 more, which does scale per minion. So like if you want to have 2 Skeletal Brutes, that's going to be 46 times 2. Just keep that in mind. It also has a much higher tier and a little bit of a higher level that the skill gem will drop on. It also requires a much higher level from you, level 33 as opposed to level 14, and a bit of a heftier int cost as well. These things seem pretty automatic, no like added skill to them in a la the arsonist that you know, has its own crit chance and cooldown associated with it. These things just seem like their base text here is what we take them off. They summon hard-hitting, reviving skeletal brutes that can stun primed enemies. So they have that stun tag associated with them, meaning that to me, if you want to use these against especially boss types to trigger their stun gauge, that seems like it would be a pretty good idea. But yeah, this would be maybe the tankier combo type minion that I would assume you'd use with a skeletal arsonist. Anyways, moving on to the skeletal cleric, we have tier 13 witch, level 13. Reservation cost 14 spirit, so not nearly as high as the other two that we've seen. Seems like you can get a few of these guys out no problem. But this kind of goes into the first, I don't want to spam my opinion here, but the first sort of problematic minion. Because as you see, small reservation cost, high tier skill gem, it is going to have a high level requirement to get these things on the floor. You're not going to be seeing these things until I predict like Act 5 or Act 6 or something like that. But when you do start using them, these are basically going to be minions that revive your minions and heal your minions and also give them resistances. The resistances make some amount of sense to me, but healing and reviving your other minions doesn't really make sense to me. And really, when I think about it, resistances kind of also doesn't make too much sense because minions, as we established in PoE 2, revive on their own and do that for free. There's no resource cost associated with them, meaning you're not really incentivized, it feels like, to care about your minion survivability unless the cooldown in between minions resummoning themselves after they've died is massive. If that's like a minute, then I could see you suddenly caring about their survivability. But if you know, if it's not massive, then and that kind of seems like I'm answering my own question. Like it's going to be a very long cooldown. You're going to feel punished for losing your minions in fights. But from everything I've seen, in the direction that they're going with minions, to turning them into a very like automated thing that you configure once before you hop into any map with your with the table that they give you of like, you know, tick tick tick, I want to have 2 brutes, I want to have 1 cleric, I want to have 5 skeletal warriors. You configure that, go into a map, and then never touch minion skill ever again throughout the map, unless you're using things like detonate dead. But even then you're only using detonate dead. You're not using you're not summoning minions and then detonating them that way. It doesn't really seem like investing into minions that are going to reserve your spirit and therefore hurt the overall effectiveness of your army because you could have had a different minion instead. It doesn't seem like investing into clerics or supportive type minions seems to make a lot of sense to me. Again, unless that cooldown in between your minions' lives is massive, in which case I think I'd rather just like, would I invest into a minion? Maybe you'd have like 1 cleric that could heal your entire army in between packs, or like I'd invest into minion leech. I don't know. We'll see. It's always been hard for GGG to balance the minion that exists solely to heal yourself and other minions archetype. And this thing doesn't even look like it would heal you. It seems like it's only going to heal other minions based on the text. So I really don't know the purpose of the skeletal cleric unless it's going to be like giga bonkers overpowered, which honestly, it's probably going to be, just because GGG is definitely aware that like rejuvenation totem is a pretty weak archetype, or specters that heal you are pretty weak in PoE 1. So we'll see what they do with that minion. Moving on to the skeletal frost mage, we have reservation cost very hefty. This is at 50 nearly reservation cost, 49 spirit. That is the highest that we've seen, even higher than the brute. Level 5 skill gem and tier 5, you're gonna have access to these things as early as level 14. They do seem very powerful from a damage dealing perspective, as you see the base damage there of what appears to be one of their spells, 28 to 43, 100% more effective chill. So these things are going to be slowing things down like nobody's business. And if we just compare that, this is almost as much damage base as, actually it's a little bit more damage, but it says deals additional. So like the damage that these things do with their special that is, you know, only 6-second cooldown, doesn't kill your other minions. The base damage for this ability is almost as much as the base damage for these guys' special ability, which blows up your minions. So the Skeletal Frost Mage, I think these things will carry you through the early game. Definitely something you're going to want to look at as a staple for your army, probably just all throughout. This will probably be like a bread and butter for early late game builds. Just investing into your Skeletal Frost Mage, making it powerful, probably going some crit oriented playstyle with them. We'll see. Maybe we will. There's a curse that I might not have included in this list that is definitely, it definitely is kind of associated with the minion playstyle. Gazzy's talked about it. I believe it is called Despair. That you can cast on things and it increases their crit vulnerability from every source. So maybe you'll be playing around with that curse and this minion archetype. But yeah, the Skeletal Frost Mage definitely seems like a powerful addition to the PoE 2 minion roster, and I'm excited to see what players do with this, especially with their special ability that has a 12% base crit chance. That's massive. Then we move on to the Skeletal Reaver. This is going to be we're going to require a level 27 Witch, or not Witch, but just level 27. A tier 9 skill gem that I think spawns in at level 7. And then you level it up from there. It has a base ability, summons aggressive, reviving skeletal reavers that can enrage on command. That enrage has a 4-second cooldown. But when it's used, it enrages all skeletal reavers, so it seems like they'll all have this activate at the same time. And yeah, this is what I'm going to assume will be kind of associated with the first combo of the skeletal minions comboing with one another. You got the skeletal arsonist and the skeletal reaver for the minion that loses life over time, does more damage as a result, and then once its life hits a certain threshold, aka 15%, your skeletal arsonist can blow them up for even more damage. And again, these things enrage themselves. They gain rage every time they hit things with this ability up. And so if you don't know about rage, which I assume works, I shouldn't even assume, it works similarly to how it works in PoE 2. Rage is a mechanic that gives you basically like increased everything. Increased move speed, attack speed, cast speed, and I think just melee damage or attack damage. Like you get more attack damage per rage, or maybe it's just attack and cast speed. But it's a really good stat to get, especially on melee creatures like these bad boys. So them attacking quickly, I've seen these things before. I'll probably show a picture. These are the dual scythed minions. They have like 2 axes, it looks like, and they hit things quickly and they run towards things quickly. So these things look really badass, and you're gonna have access to them at a relatively early level. I'm predicting like Act 2, maybe late Act 2, early Act 3. You'll probably have access to the Skeletal Reavers. Then we next have the Skeletal Sniper. This is the most reservation cost we've seen, and it's not even close, like, actually this time, right? Previously, that mantle was held by the Skeletal Frost Mage, but we just amped that up by another 41 spirit with these Skeletal Snipers. So definitely, this will be like a defining element of your army, right? Your Skeletal Sniper is not something that I don't predict you will be flexing these things in as just like a casual, like, oh yeah, we just threw a few snipers in there. Like, no, these things are, they cost an insane amount of spirit to throw even just one of them in, such that if you throw one of them in, it's probably pretty integral to your strategy in one way or another. And we see how some of the ways in which that might take shape in the form of apparently a gas arrow that they have the ability to throw or shoot. It's going to have an 8-second cooldown. It's going to do a bit, it's going to fire out quickly, I believe attack speed 120% of base, but the damage is going to be less. I'm assuming that just mostly means that the projectile will travel pretty quickly to its target, certainly quicker than it would if it was normally firing that out. This is probably a consistency thing, and it does less base damage, probably because of the poisonous gas that's associated with it. And let's read: rains an arrow down from above, creating a cloud of flammable poisonous gas where it lands. Shoot an arrow that'll spread some gas all around, and then you can use a detonator skill. The cloud will detonate if hit by a detonator skill, or if ignited by an enemy that is ignited touches it, creating a fiery explosion. Detonator skills are going to be any of a number of skills. They will, in some way, shape, or form, trigger something. It's its own skill archetype. I'm really excited to see how this plays out with this sort of launch a gas pool at something and then have a fire type minion activate or proc that in some way, or just ignite an enemy and have that thing run through it. It seems like it could be clunky, but if it's not clunky, if this really does work in the exact way that they're going to, kind of setting it up to work, I'm excited to see how this does play out in the grand scheme of things. Then next we have the skeletal storm mage. It's a tier 11, level 11 minion that's going to reserve 42 spirit, and it's going to require level 41. So sort of a mid-game kind of thing, I'm predicting. Summons reviving skeletal storm mages that call down a lightning storm on dead skeletons on command. As you can see, this is a 5-second cooldown, but a 10% base crit chance with a rather hefty cast time of 2 seconds. Something that I would predict you'd need to set up for. This ability is going to take a bit of time to lock onto its target, so you're going to probably want to have something to tank the enemy mob, or just some kind of like setup for these things to get their ability off, or maybe something else to clear with, because that is a very long time for an explosion to happen. I'm going to say 2 seconds it feels like an eternity when you're trying to clear maps efficiently with cast times like that. But as you can see, the payoff is pretty darn significant. The damage is insane. We've got lightning bolts strike all fallen skeletons in the area, creating shock ground around them. That deals 74 to 418 lightning damage. It's absolutely massive base damage to scale. Bolt explosion radius is 1.8 meters. Shocked ground radius is 1.8 meters, and it lasts for 6 seconds. So as you can see, the cooldown overlaps with the duration of the shock. And I've seen shock kind of works differently in PoE 2. It seems to be associated with your stun meter. So this seems like it would be definitely good for a like boss type encounter. Definitely good for an unleashing a huge flurry of damage. You have 3 or 4 of these things in your army, and they're going to be bolting down over 1,000 damage every 5 seconds, every 7 seconds ish, and it's going to be doing massive stun damage. Yeah, just set these things up, you know, get them some kind of tank, or maybe be the face tank yourself so these things aren't getting destroyed, and watch them mow down your hordes of enemies. They seem very powerful. Next we have the skeletal warrior, and this just seems like your generic meat of your army, the sort of the meat and bones, so to speak, you know, pun intended, I guess. Just some face tank dude to get in the way, because it's a tier 1 skill gem that will start at leveling at level 6. You're going to reserve 20 spirit per skeletal warrior. Kind of a late level cost there. It's usually level 21. You're going to have to figure out a way, as I've noticed, from all of these summoning skill gems, even the earliest ones that we've seen, the skeletal arsonist. You're going to have to find a way, and the skeletal frost mage. You're just going to have to find a way to get to accessing these skill gems. It's not like in PoE 1, I guess, unlike the skeletal, unless we're talking about the skeletal sniper, which is actually available to you as early as level 1. All other summon skill gems in this game that we've seen so far seem like you're gonna have to find a way to get to level 10 or level 20 or level 30 to access me. You're not gonna just be able to use summons to get to this summon. Your skeletal sniper seems like he's going to be there with you from the very get-go if you want to play a purely oriented playstyle. I don't want to do damage to anything. I want other things killing things for me as early as when I load into the game, pick up a skeletal sniper and go to town. Yeah, but that besides the point. That kind of, with that synopsis of the skeletal warrior, we round out all of the skeletal category. I want to go on to the other summons category, which is basically just anything that doesn't have the skeletal prefix but seemed like it was a summon, has a reservation cost, or is literally called minion. So I guess first up we have the Bind Spectre skill gem. This is, as you see, level tier 7, level 8 skill gem that you'll start leveling it at. Has a bit of a cast time to it. This is one of the few deliberate point click, you cast a spell, and at 3 seconds it seems like hopefully the fight is over, or if it's in the middle of a boss fight, you're finding an area or a pocket of time to cast this of safety, because a 3-second cast time definitely sets this apart from the Raise Spectre skill gem that we saw in PoE 1 that's been with us for so long, that basically has like a 0.5 second cast time. So this is Bind Spectre, and it basically works the exact way that PoE 1's Raise Spectre does, where you just capture the essence or spirit of a defeated monster and you summon it to your army. Interestingly enough, it doesn't say a reservation cost for spirits here, but and I'll probably link the, in that gameplay footage that I link down below, Jonathan Rogers goes over how each Spectre will have its own reservation cost specific to the Spectre. So you can't just raise infinite Spectres. I believe you can only raise one, and per Spectre gem is the Spectre tied to it, kind of like in PoE 1. And that Spectre will reserve the amount of spirit that the GGG has determined each Spectre that we'll have available to us will reserve. And you can have multiple gems, you can have multiple Spectres, but they'll all have their own spirit reservation cost, and could be hefty, if you have too many crazy juiced up Spectres. I guess I don't know if I covered this, but also requires level 33. Similar to in PoE 1, it's not an early game thing. This is definitely like an Act 3, Act 4 kind of thing. So you're going to have to, again, common theme, you're going to have to find a way to get to Act 3 before you get to start playing around with Spectres. Raging Spirits. This is definitely the first big departure from something that we saw in PoE 1. It's going to be totally different in PoE 2. This is not just new content, this is changed content, a side grade perhaps, if you will. Raging Spirits is now a buff. It is a minion buff, and is fire associated with. We got Minion, Fire Duration is one of the tags, and Persistent is another one of their tags. It's a tier 4, level 5 skill gem, with a 30 spirit reservation cost. And what it looks like it'll do is reserve your spirit, and then while you are reserving any amount of spirit towards the Raging Spirits, any and all of your fire spells will summon the Raging Spirits, presumably an amount that you designate. So if you have like 120 spirit reserved, you will be able to summon up to 4 Raging Spirits every time you use fire spells. And they will probably, I've seen gameplay footage of them, they kind of look similar to how they do in PoE 1. They're flaming skulls that rush towards your enemies. They attack them rapidly. They don't directly engage with minions in the same way that like every other minion type does. So they don't really have a hitbox, and other minions don't, like enemy minions won't aggro onto them. I don't think they can taunt enemies, but nevertheless, they do have a crap ton of damage that they do as fire damage that you can scale as physical damage, just like in PoE 1. They have a short duration of 4 seconds, just like in PoE 1. You can only have 10 of them. That's an interesting cap to put on the Raging Spirits. And then also they have an area spell. Fire area spell summons a spirit per 1.5 meters of radius. That's a condition for your fire spells that will summon them. Projectiles from fire spells summon a spirit on hit. Okay, that's so if you're using like a projectile like fireball or something like that, and then maximum of 5 spirits summoned per spell cast. Okay, interesting. Yeah, so you're not gonna you can get the horde going quickly if you have like a fireball and a lot of cast speed. You're just poof poof, you got 10 Raging Spirits right there if it's an area type fire spell. Fireball is an area spell, right? So yeah, interesting change to Raging Spirits. It's going to be interesting to see, especially when we data mine their damage and see, like, are they still the top dog minion? Are they still something that you can use to shred through the axe if you're willing to just, equip fireball and just reserve spirit? Very interesting to see the changes to summon Raging Spirits. Then we got Raise Zombie. This is definitely a change as well to the zombies that we know and love from PoE 1, but really, admittedly, not that much of a change. As you can see, it's a spell, a duration-based spell that I believe similar to in PoE 1. I don't think zombies were permanent in PoE 1. You can correct me on that if I'm wrong. Actually, I think they are permanent in PoE 1. It's skeletons that are not permanent in PoE 1. Zombies are permanent. So that's the first big change. Second big change is that, well, this isn't really a change, but it's a flow breaker from a lot of the other minions. These do actually have a mana cost, and they don't have a spirit reservation cost. That is the same as PoE 1, but that is interesting because that is not the same as any other minion that we've seen so far in PoE 2. So just note that. Raised zombies are minions that have a time associated with them and a duration associated with them. They do not have a spirit cost. Not one that we can see, at least on their character chart. And as you see, they're also a pretty early game minion. They actually do come online at level 12 with a relatively minor or probably insignificant int cost of 25. And then this is another change. Consumes a corpse or a power charge. Corpse, that was the same. Power charge is an interesting aspect to this. You can now use power charges to create zombies and other minions too, presumably. Probably in the future. And when you create them with power charges, they're going to be empowered. They're going to have bonus stats. So you can have a limit of 10 raised zombies. They last for 20 seconds. They seem like they're just going to hit really freaking hard. I don't know. I've seen some gameplay footage of them. I don't know the numbers, but they seem like minions that you summon similar to skeletons pre 3.19, pre-Calandra League. These seem like old skeletons where they're going to come out and they're just going to smack things, especially if you make them with power charges. Again, I'm trying to keep my opinions to a minimum here, but I'm just reading these. It seems like zombies are going to be very beefy boys. Zombie lovers, you Baron enjoyers out there, rejoice. Because especially empowered zombies take 30% less damage. They deal 100% more damage with hits. That's insane. And then they have a 25% move speed boost as well. That's crazy. We have another raised zombie skill gem here. This one looks interesting too because it has a level. It's showing it could be from level 1 to 20. It's probably just like the full breadth of the raised zombie skill gem here. They're just trying to show its leveling, its like scaling capabilities. I guess this is just some like added info on the raised zombie skill gem, and this shows that it's a spell minion with the minion tag. This one is a minion with the spell and duration tag. But again, this just seems like the full breadth of the skill gem. I will say, interestingly, there's 2 different cast times. And if you read this, they actually have 2 different descriptions. This raises a zombie from a corpse, which will follow you and attack enemies with melee strike. I'm going to assume, actually, that this is like an older playtest version of the skill gem. Perhaps from... Oh, no, this says PoE 1. This is PoE 1. That's interesting. Well, and again, we haven't seen that for any other... Like, not even Raging Spirits, which does have a PoE 1 counterpart. Interesting. Okay, anyways. Next, we move on to Summon Rhoa Mount. Now, this is a really interesting one because we've seen a bit, like a very small amount of gameplay footage. I think I've seen a small amount of gameplay footage from this. Or maybe not. I was under the impression that a certain ascendancy will have access to this ability. In that ascendancy, I think maybe the Warden will be able to... Only that ascendancy will be able to ride this around. I could be wrong. But either way, it has a 50 reservation spirit cost and a 1-second cast time, which is interesting. It says D&T, like a horse, but a bird, apparently. Not too much to say about this one. I don't know too much about this one. We're just going to move right past it. Then we have Summon Wolf. This is a... yeah, okay. We also didn't have, like, minion skill gem... We didn't have skill gem info on this one, which is kind of another reason why I wanted to move right past it. But this one we do have skill gem info on. I guess it's a level 1 skill gem, but it doesn't it doesn't show the requirements. It's just a weird skill. I think this is associated with an ascendancy. I don't want to, like... I'm not trying to ignore this. I just don't know what else to say about it because there's not a lot of info and I don't want to, like, say anything wrong. But from what I've heard, this is associated with an ascendancy. In any case, the Summon Wolf spell, which is a minion skill gem, level 12 that you'll start leveling it at, has a actual cost associated with it with respect to mana and reservation. That's very interesting. No timer though, so very weird skill gem here. I'm interested to see how the Summon Wolf works. I think we've seen some footage of it, but I haven't heard these inconsistencies of like having a reservation cost associated with spirit and a mana cost and no timer. I haven't heard this explained. It does have a strength cost as well. It's interesting. That's the first minion skill gem that we've seen with any kind of non-ant requirement. And it has a 0.65 second cast time. It also seems like these things will be, maybe they'll just have a higher base crit chance by themselves as minions, but they also have a howl type ability that is like a, sort of like that curse that I was talking about earlier. It's going to make crits against other enemies that are nearby, near to the wolf, more likely. So a support type minion is what I'm seeing here. If it's not just a super strong minion too, like I said, I think it'll have a higher crit chance. I could be completely wrong about that. Then we have Unearth. We have seen gameplay footage of this. Unearth works way differently than it did in PoE 1 because Unearth actually summons minions now and not just corpses. And those minions seem like they're really good fodder minions, like good for detonate dead, and also minions that can combo with other spells. We've seen, it's not listed here at all in the text, but we saw gameplay footage in the video that I linked of Jonathan Rogers, I think using a curse. I think it was Despair or like Enfeeble or something. I think it was actually Contagion. He's using Contagion, and Contagion affects the bone constructs as well. I don't know if Contagion is a meta skill or if Unearth just has missing text here, but we saw that combination possible in the gameplay footage, but it's not listed here in this text. Speaking of the text, let's go over it. Insanely high crit chance. These are minions that have AoE, physical, and duration tags. Tier 1 skill gem that's going to be level 1. It has a mana cost associated with it, no spirit cost associated with it, so you can really get a horde going. Just to quote the gameplay footage directly, Jonathan Rogers said that this is definitely the type of minion that you can spam a lot of. They have a insane crit chance, like I mentioned, 15% crit chance, and then raises spikes of bone from earth in front of you, damaging enemies. The bones of corpses in the area are ripped out and reassembled into short-lived bone construct minions that fight for you. Deals 4 to 6 fizz, and then you can have a limit of 8. They last for 12 seconds. And the cone of the ability is 6 meters, so it's kind of like a ground slam type ability that you fling out. It looked like a slightly defensive move, actually. It looked like it changed the terrain of areas in front of you when I was seeing gameplay footage of it. But either way, this is the other spell text that we have for Unearth. I believe this is from PoE 1 because it says PoE 1 up there. This is the level 1 to 20, mana cost associated with it, crit strike chance, and again, this is not something that is in PoE 1. PoE 1 does not actually have an Unearth that has crit and damage associated with it. In PoE 1, all Unearth does is summon corpses and apply chaos damage over time, which is why I don't know why this says PoE 1, but either way. Effectiveness of added damage, 140. Fires a projectile that will pierce through enemies to impact the ground at the targeted location, creating a bone archer corpse where it lands. So yeah, I don't know if this was like an earlier playtest version of the ability, but either way, that is Unearth, and this is the more recent version of the skill that I was aware of. So just letting you aware of that. Moving on to the offering type spells, we have Bone Offering, which is a minion spell that has the tags spell, buff, duration, AoE, and physical. Tier 11 witch spell that is a skill gem starting at level 11, and a hefty mana cost at 67. Interestingly enough, has a crit strike chance associated with it. If you know anything about offering spells, I find that to be interesting. You probably do too. And it impales a skeleton on a bone spike to shield your minions while the spike remains. So I assume this is this is why I categorized all the skeletal minions in their own category. It needs to target a skeletal type minion. It can't just be a raging spirit or any minion, or a rhoa mount or a wolf or something. It has to be a skeleton. And when you do that, I think this is why I don't understand the crit chance. I think it just instantly kills the skeleton. I don't think it does like damage to the skeleton. A gameplay footage I've seen of this shows that it just like instantly stabs the skeleton, destroys it. Kind of a cool animation. But there's no living. The skeleton does not have like a chance to survive the spike. It just blows the fuck up. And then it creates this shield. A shield that absorbs all damage from the next hit each minion takes, and then it explodes. And I think that does damage. The bone spike itself is a minion. So the bone spike itself, there's got to be a typo there. The bone spike itself a minion. Itself is a minion and shields itself if it dies. shields on your other minions disappear. I think this means the bone spike itself is a minion and shields itself if it dies. The bone spike itself is a minion and it shields itself. If it dies, shields on your other minions disappear. That's what I think it's trying to say. Could be wrong about that. Lasts for 5 seconds. You can only have one of them. And then this is Bone Offering PoE 1 text. This is actually Bone Offering pretty similarly to PoE 1. It gives them block chance and life regen if they blocked. This is like actually the first time I agree with the text that this says. And I guess so without further ado, let's just, go on to the next offering spell. We have Pain Offering. This is a new spell entirely. It is a minion spell with the buff, duration, and aura tags. It is a tier 5 witch spell that you will start leveling at level 6. You have cost 10 mana associated with it, and a 0.6 second cast time. Requires level 21. What was the other Bone Offering in PoE 2 is going to require level 41. And then it impales a skeleton on a bone spike to empower nearby minions into a frenzy as long as the spike remains, causing them to use skills more quickly. The bone spike itself is a minion. If it dies, then the effect ends immediately. So yeah, I would assume that's what this monstrosity was trying to tell us. So yeah, you can have one of them alive. They have an aura of 6 meters. They last for 5 seconds. That's consistent with the other offering. And it gives them just a crap ton of damage and attack speed. This seems like, well, Pain Offering, and then we had, I think, Blood Offering, right? Blood Offering was the PoE 1 offensive, or was it Flesh Offering? I think it was Flesh Offering. This seems like the, generic damage. Most people will just like Smork Brain, default to this, and I can't blame them. It looks pretty powerful. Very nice effect. Then we have Power Offering. Impales a skeleton on a bone spike, extracting a power charge over a short duration. The bone spike itself is a minion. If it dies, the extraction is interrupted and you will not gain a power charge. Limit 10 Power Offering spikes. So insane mana cost associated with this, high level and high int requirement associated with this, and a high skill tier gem associated with this as well. But very powerful spell, I think, as a dedicated, you can just get a power charge. Kill a minion, get a power charge reliably, no questions asked. Go make your horde of empowered zombies with this as your setup spell. Yeah, I don't know. I will say that skills like this tend to not be powerful as the game introduces power creep and more dedicated ways to get power charges. But as it stands, I think this is the only skill that we have that just straight up guarantees gets you a power charge with no questions. No item associated with it, just a skill that you use that gets you a power charge reliably every single time. If you can kill a minion with it, you can get a power charge. And then I guess don't lose the bone spike that it summons, otherwise you won't gain the power charge. So pretty reliable way to gain a power charge. And as we've seen, there's a lot of setup for power charges. If there's as much support for power charges as there is, and if GGG is going to be able to actually push the archetype as something that will definitely reward you and make you feel powerful for investing into, then yeah, I think Power Offering will be a strong spell. It'll be interesting to see how people use this in a way that's not so clunky as just I need to use this to get a power charge. Like, are people going to find a way to cheat with this is all I'm really trying to say, and find a way around this spell entirely, I guess. Because that's what a lot of good builds do. Cast on minion death. This does have a spirit reservation cost associated with it. And by the way, we've moved into a different category. We're moving now into the support category. These are just support skill gems, I believe, and generally spells that are associated with, these are actually, all of these are support skill gems. That's all this category means. So the cast on minion death, this is a new trigger and meta skill, but definitely a new trigger in the cast on X archetype that existed previously in PoE 1. Now we have cast on minion death. Some unique items in PoE 1 had effects similar to this, so it's not like this is coming out of the blue. We did have triggers for when your minions died in PoE 1, but now we have a dedicated trigger skill gem associated with that exact archetype being released in PoE 2. I couldn't be more excited about this. A lot of creative things will probably come from this. We do have spirit reservation costs associated with it. So it's not going to be coming as a skill gem completely for free. While active, gains energy when one of your minions dies and triggers socketed spells upon reaching maximum energy. Cannot socket spells which create minions. Gains energy when your minions die. Based on the defensive power of the minion, triggers all socketed spells and loses all energy on reaching maximum energy. At a level cost or level requirement of 10 and a cast time of instant and a skill tier of 8, I don't think this will be too out of the reach for most players to screw around with, honestly. I think actually we might be seeing, just with how low the requirements are, the most support we've seen ever for the cast on X archetype in skill gems like this that have that are just a level 10 dinky little requirement of 30 reservation. Like, this is so free to just test around with that I might actually start screwing around with cast on minion death and seeing what creative things I can come up with it. It's just most cast on X archetype spells, they're like in PoE 1 they were like you have cast on damage taken. Isn't that like a level 38 skill gem? Just to start screwing around with it, you need to be at the end of Act 3. But this skill gem will be available to you, it seems like, as early as the equivalent of Twilight Strand and Medicine Chest being completed on your account. So yeah, I don't know. This is I'm very excited to see the low cost of entry for this skill and the potential that can come from just tinkering around with triggers with skill gems like that. We also have Meat Shield. This is a support skill gem that also existed in PoE 1. Looks like you attach it to a minion, and it supports skills which create minions, making them defensive and giving them a chance to taunt enemies. So gone are the straight up defensive bonuses that you would get of takes 30% less damage from hits and gains a shit ton of life. Looks like all this is going to do is change their AI and give them a 10% chance to taunt. Certainly a lot weaker than it was previously, and you can see this as a point of comparison for that, how it used to give them more damage, even makes them take straight up just less damage. This is a really good line. It makes them quicker, and it gave them even more taunt. So Meat Shield nerfs. Minion instability. Supports skills which create minions, causing them to violently explode when reduced to low life. This was a keystone on the witch's passive tree. It wasn't like the most common keystone taken, but there were several summoning archetypes associated with it. I think most notably what comes to mind is the Popcorn SRS build. Now it's being moved over to a skill gem. We also have this line: minions from supported skills explode when reduced to low life, dealing 7% of their life as fire damage to surrounding enemies. That might be down from 10. I can't remember what the, I guess I could just type in, how much would this really hurt me to just type in minion instability PoE 1 and just look up. Yeah, okay, no. It was 33%, but this is the old wiki. This is the fandom. No, it was 33%. 33% damage. This is 33% of their life as fire. And that's down to 7% of their life is fire to surrounding enemies. So way lower the numbers for sure. But I would not be surprised if something like this can find its way in more builds now that it's not a keystone passive. It just seems like you're gonna have a lot more control over it. And we know that the numbers in PoE 2 are becoming a lot more homogenized and made smaller, if you will. The significantly lower number here does not necessarily mean that this is a terrible or trash skill gem. Then we move on to Minion Pact. Supports damaging skills you use yourself. Drain the life from one of your minions on use in order to boost the skill's damage. Only takes effect if you have a minion with enough life to drain the full amount. Supported skills remove 100% of your max life from a minion on use to deal 40% more damage. Dang. That's a lot more. I don't know. It's gonna. I wish I got more information. Like, what's the cast time? What is the? It doesn't matter at all the minion. It just matters if they have enough life. So yeah, what's the cast time? That's the main thing, because 40% is a lot of extra damage, and expending a trash throwaway minion can sometimes be a benefit. Like, a lot of builds would find a way to actually make that good. This could be an archetype. Don't sleep on this. This is a free skill gem's worth of damage they're giving you. Definitely depends on the duration of the buff and the cast time of the ability. both of which conveniently are left out of the skill gem. Terrible skill gem info. We need more info. Anyways, now we move on to other buffs. These are not support skill gems, right? Because just one more time, all of these skill gems that we looked at are either the meta skill gem of cast on minion death, or they are support skill gems that you will attach to these skill gems right here. The other buffs category is actual skill gems that are like, they're not offerings, but they give your minions buffs and they have the minion tag, and I just didn't know what to put them in. Or they have a reservation cost, or they have both a minion tag and a reservation cost. So yeah. First up is Grim Feast. It is a level 4, or tier 4, level 7 skill gem. You'll start leveling it at level 7. It has a reservation cost of 30 spirits, requires you be level 22 and have 52 intelligence to equip. And its text is, feeds on corpses to bolster your energy shield. While active, enemies and minions that die in your presence will drop Grim Remnants. Picking up a Grim Remnant grants you, we've seen, I think, some gameplay footage of this. It's like a way of sustaining your energy shield when you pick up these Grim Remnants, and you can gain overflow. You can overflow your energy shield up to double its normal maximum amount with this with basically with just Grim Remnants. So yeah, you can become super tanky playing this little mini game. Truth be told, I don't know if I don't want to like crap on archetypes, because we really don't know what's going to happen in PoE 2. You know, maybe there's going to be a stat dropped called like increased item pickup radius, and people can scale that or find an easy way to scale that, and suddenly it'll become extremely easy or like low cost, low maintenance to pick up these Grim Remnants. They'll just basically become vacuumed into your character automatically, even if you kill something half a screen away. And if that's the case, then this could just be a free defensive layer of double your HP for 30 reservation cost and 1 skill gem, which sounds nuts. So I don't want to crap on this, but if it is going to require the player move around a bunch just to get a bit of extra HP back, that can stack up to double your normal maximum health, but you have to do that like every time you reset the zone because the buff doesn't carry over, and it recuperates your energy shield at such a pitiful amount, 24. Say I have a pool of 2,000 energy shield. Well, you're telling me I got to pick up like 100 of these just to overcap my health to its maximum? Like, no shot, dude. So it's going to be interesting to see how Grim Feast plays out in practice, but I'm tempering my expectations. Then we move on to Lingering Illusion. And this skill gem is interesting because I feel like this skill gem exists more in the sorcerer and mage or witch, like the other archetypes, the non-minion type. But just because it has a spirit reservation cost, I decided to throw it in here. And it technically does summon a minion, even though it doesn't have a minion tag. You can see it does have the persistent tag. And what happens with this skill gem is every time you dodge roll, create a copy of yourself that has 20% more actually it has 20% of your max life. So it's very, very squishy. And it does draw aggro from enemies. If they kill this little Lingering Illusion, you get a power charge. And this actually, I don't know, I don't know. I really hope GGG is careful with this ability, because this ability could become the de facto power charge generating ability if they're not careful. This seems like such an insanely low investment way to get power charges going, where you're just naturally dodge rolling around, as good players will probably be doing, because that's going to be a mechanic used to straight up negate damage. So naturally dodge rolling around, you're creating illusions, and occasionally those illusions are just giving you free power charges and also taunting enemies, causing them to not directly focus on you. This could be just a perfect flexibility that every build is going to want to flex, find a way to flex in, just for free pseudo damage mitigation and power charge generation. And it seems really overpowered. So I decided to throw it in here for the Minion Skill Gems preview. But if I can put down the veil of my opinion for a second and just give it to you guys frank, this thing seems really strong. I would definitely keep your eye out for Lingering Illusion. And then we have Mana Remnants. This is a buff type ability that is associated with your minions. It has, as you can see there, text that says minions directly, so I decided to throw it in. It's a persistent lightning spell, tier 4, level 4 skill gem. You'll start leveling it at, and has a reservation cost of 30 spirit. very early level requirement at level 10. And what it does is it conjures surging lightning that causes shocked enemies you or your minions kill to leave behind a mana remnant. When you pick up one of those mana remnants, you gain mana. It's similar to Grim Feast, where you can double your maximum mana pool by picking up these mana remnants. So similar mechanic to Grim Feast, but for your mana pool. These seem like some of the tools that GGG is giving us for recovery in the game that is themed around something other than just like recover X life per second or leech. It's like now they're toying around with the idea of giving us skills that give us area-based, positioning-based recovery, which admittedly is an interesting archetype. We haven't seen something like this before. Like I said, previously, if you want to gain life, you just get like recover X life per second, or gain life on block, or recover X amount of life when you get hit, or recoup or something like that. We haven't seen, I guess, the health globe or the mana globe or the essence, the energy shield globe, and now they're giving those to us. So these are some interesting tools they're giving us, and I'm really interested to see how players screw around with the minion archetype as a whole, especially with tools such as cast on minion death being available to us so early on, and I guess the lingering illusion ability being so widespread as like or potentially being super ubiquitous as an ability that just generically gives you power charges and more tankiness for free when you're dodge rolling, which is something you're going to do anyways, all for the low cost of 30 spirit. But anyways, without trying to ramble too much, that's been it. That's me just covering all the minion skill gems. Let me know if you want me to do a specific archetype of skill gems in the future. Otherwise, I'm going to just be picking my own and continuing this series up until PoE's eventual release, going over every skill gem I can compile into a certain archetype. GG's. And there you go.